There are days when life has not really collapsed, but the mind has already decided that everything is going wrong. You come home tired, you put your bag down. Someone in the house asks a very ordinary question. Did you remember to buy the milk? And somehow that question sounds like an accusation. You answer too quickly, your voice becomes sharp. A few minutes later you sit alone and wonder, why am I so angry today? You see, the Buddha taught impermanence. But impermanence does not mean we stop caring. It does not mean this body will grow old anyway, so let it fall apart. That is like refusing to charge your phone because the battery will become empty again. It sounds philosophical, but it does not help very much. We usually think of impermanence when something good comes to an end. But the same teaching also means that a painful season does not have to stay forever. A bad day can pass. A relationship that has been wounded can slowly heal. Even a mind that has carried anger for years can begin to soften when we stop feeding the old conditions and begin creating different ones. And on a tired day, those conditions matter. Maybe you did not sleep enough. Maybe there is worry about money. Maybe someone spoke to you in the wrong tone that morning. One small condition joins another. Before long, the mind is tight. Patience is thin, and one ordinary question feels much bigger than it really is. Then somebody asks about the milk, and suddenly the whole house is suffering. That is how causes and conditions work. The reaction appears in one moment, but it may have been gathering all day. So when you are very tired, be careful. Do not let one difficult hour judge your entire life. And do not make a permanent decision while the mind is passing through temporary pain. We all want peace, but many times we search for peace in things that cannot remain the same. We want the body to promise it will never become sick. We want money to promise that nothing frightening will happen. We want the people we love to promise they will never change or disappoint us. But life cannot make those promises. That does not mean we stop caring for the body. It does not mean money is bad. And it certainly does not mean we should love people less. It means we learn to treasure what is here without trying to freeze it. There are several places where human beings look for safety. We protect them. We worry about them. Sometimes we even hurt one another because of them. But when life changes, most of them cannot protect the mind from suffering. There is one place, however, that can be trained, and when that place begins to change, the same life can feel completely different. So before you decide that your life is too heavy, rest the body for a moment. Let the mind become a little quieter. Then look again. You may discover that life has not become hopeless. The mind was simply carrying too many conditions at once. Perhaps your life is not asking you to give up. Perhaps it is asking you to learn a different way of meeting it. Now, this is where many people misunderstand the teaching. They hear that everything is impermanent, and the mind quickly reaches the wrong conclusion. If everything changes, why bother? Why care for the body if it will grow old? Why build something if one day it may disappear? Why love deeply if separation is unavoidable? For a moment, that may sound reasonable. But it is not wisdom. It is discouragement wearing Buddhist clothing. The Buddha did not teach impermanence so that we would become careless with life. He taught it so that we would stop sleeping through the life that is already here. Imagine someone owns an old car. One morning the engine begins making a strange sound. A warning light appears, but the owner says, this car will not last forever anyway, so he keeps driving. No repair, no oil change, no attention. Then one morning, the car breaks down when he needs to take his mother to a medical appointment. Now he is standing beside the road, looking at smoke coming from the engine, saying, well, everything is impermanent. Yes, the car is impermanent, but the breakdown also had causes. Impermanence does not remove responsibility. It reminds us not to delay what needs to be done. The body is the same. This body will change. It will become tired. It will become older. At times it will become sick. But that does not mean we neglect it. We eat with some care. We sleep when rest is needed. We seek proper help when something is wrong. Not because we believe the body can last forever, but because for now, this is the body through which we speak. Serve, listen, apologize, and practice. Through this body, we can sit beside someone who is grieving. We can carry food to a person who cannot leave home. We can hold the hand of someone who is afraid. We can offer one gentle sentence at the right moment. So the body is not something to worship, but it is not something to throw away either. It is a temporary instrument, and because it is temporary, we should use it wisely. The same is true of relationships. Sometimes people say everyone leaves eventually, so I do not want to become too attached. That sounds peaceful, but sometimes it is not non-attachment. Sometimes it is fear. We keep the heart at a distance because we are afraid that love may one day hurt. But avoiding love does not free us from suffering. It creates the suffering of never being fully present. The teaching is not asking us to love less. It is asking us to love without pretending that we own the person we love. When we think someone belongs to us, their changes feel like betrayal. Their priorities change, their opinions change, their life moves in a direction we did not expect. Then the mind says, "You were not supposed to become different, but how can a living person remain exactly the same? Even we are not the same person we were 5 years ago. Sometimes we are not even the same person we were before lunch. Before lunch, very patient. When lunch is late, the spiritual progress becomes slightly less impressive. So understand impermanence in a practical way. Because the moment will pass, be present in it. Because the person may not always be near, speak kindly now. Because the body will not always be strong. Use its strength for something meaningful, because an opportunity can disappear. Do not wait forever for a perfect day. Many people postpone what is good. When I have more time, I will visit my parents. When work becomes easier, I will practice. When I feel ready, I will apologize. When I have more money, I will become generous. But life continues while we are preparing to live it. The perfect day rarely arrives. There is only this day with its inconvenience, tiredness, unfinished work, and imperfect conditions. And perhaps this day is still enough. Enough to make one phone call. Enough to sit quietly for 5 minutes. Enough to speak without anger. Enough to stop feeding one old habit. Impermanence does not say that nothing matters. It says that because nothing stays, what we do now matters. A flower will fade, so notice it while it is blooming. A conversation will end, so listen while the other person is still speaking. And a difficult season will also pass. So do not build your identity around what you are feeling today. You are not only the sadness that is present, you are not only the mistake you made, you are not only the anger that arose this morning. Those experiences appeared because causes and conditions came together. When different conditions are created, a different experience becomes possible. But we must participate in that change. We rest instead of continuing to push. We speak before resentment becomes too heavy. We ask for help instead of pretending we need nobody. We stop watering the habit that keeps creating the same pain. Little by little, another direction begins. So when life feels heavy, do not use impermanence as a reason to give up. Let it wake you up. Care for what is here. Love what is here. Practice with what is here. This moment will not remain. That is exactly why it should not be wasted. Now, once we understand impermanence correctly, we can look at the first place where human beings search for safety, the body. Almost everyone wants a healthy body. That is natural. Nobody wakes up in the morning and says, "I hope my back hurts a little more today." We want energy, we want to sleep well, we want to move without pain. There is nothing wrong with that. The difficulty begins when caring for the body turns into demanding something impossible from it. We do not only want the body to be healthy today, we want it to promise that it will never become weak, sick, or old. And when it cannot keep that promise, the mind feels betrayed. But caring for the body and worshipping the body are not the same thing. Caring says this body needs food, rest, movement, and proper medical attention. Worshipping says this body must always look the way I want, feel the way I want, and never remind me that time is passing. One is care. The other is fear. Sometimes we say we are taking care of our health, but if we look closely, we are not caring, we are worrying. A person checks a health watch 20 times a day. The watch says the heartbeat is normal, but the mind says, "Let me check again then 5 minutes later." Again, by the end of the day, the heart may be fine, but the mind is exhausted from supervising it. Meanwhile, that same person sleeps 4 hours, drinks too much coffee, and becomes angry with everyone in the house. So the watch is healthy. The family is not doing quite as well. This is why mindfulness matters. The body sends a signal, we listen, but we do not immediately turn every signal into a disaster. A headache may mean we need water, rest, or medical care. It does not always mean the whole future is collapsing. A tired body may simply be asking us to slow down, but fear hears something else. Fear says you are becoming useless. That sentence did not come from the body. It came from the mind. The Buddha taught us to see the body clearly, not with disgust, not with vanity. Clearly, the body depends on conditions: food, sleep, movement, age, stress, weather, illness, and many conditions we cannot fully control. When supportive conditions are present, the body may feel strong. When difficult conditions gather, the body becomes tired or sick. So instead of asking, "Why is my body betraying me?" we can ask, "What conditions has this body been living with? Have I been resting? Have I been carrying tension from morning until night? Have I been pretending that I am fine because I do not want anyone to see that I need help?" Sometimes the body does not betray us. Sometimes it tells the truth the mind has been avoiding. The mind says, "I can keep going." The body says, "No, you cannot." The mind says, "Just 1 more week." The body says, "You have already said that for 6 months." And eventually the body makes the decision for us. We become sick. We cannot get out of bed. We are forced to stop. Then we call it sudden. But sometimes the body had been whispering for a long time before it finally had to shout. So take care of the body while it is still whispering. Rest before exhaustion becomes collapse. Ask for help before tension becomes resentment. This is not weakness. It is understanding causes and conditions. But there is another side. We can become so afraid of sickness that we stop living. We worry over every meal. We examine every line on the face. We compare the body today with a photograph from 10 years ago. Then we feel offended that time has continued without asking permission. But the body changes because it is alive. A body that never changes is not a healthy body. It is a statue. And even the statue changes. Dust gathers, the surface fades. Someone moves it to another shelf. So how can this living body remain still? Hair changes, skin changes, strength changes. The way we recover after a long day changes. When we are young, 1 bad night of sleep may not seem serious. Later, 1 bad night may require 3 days of negotiation. That is not failure. It is the body showing us a different season. Wisdom means learning to live well in the season we are actually in. Not the season in an old photograph, this season. Maybe the body is slower now. Then move with more care. Maybe it needs more rest. Then allow more rest. Maybe there are things it can no longer do. Do not spend every day insulting the body for changing. Notice what it can still do. It may still hold the hand of someone who is afraid. It may still prepare a simple meal. It may still sit quietly and listen. It may still say, "I am sorry," or "I forgive you," or simply, "I am here." Those are not small abilities. Buddhist practice does not ask us to make the body perfect. It asks us to use the body skillfully. Use the hands to help rather than harm. Use the feet to walk toward what is wholesome. Use the mouth to speak with care. Use the ears to listen without preparing the next argument. And when the body is tired, allow the practice to become softer. Sometimes the most mindful thing you can do is not sit for another hour. Sometimes it is to go to sleep. But be honest, do I truly need rest, or am I avoiding what needs to be done? Do I need discipline, or am I punishing the body? The middle way is neither neglect nor obsession. It is care without clinging. Discipline without cruelty. The body will not remain forever. But while it is here, it gives us an opportunity. Through this body we can create suffering. Through this same body we can reduce suffering. So care for it. Listen to it. Seek help when help is needed. But do not ask the body to make you permanently safe. It cannot do that. Its gift is not permanence. Its gift is the chance to practice today. Now the body becomes tired. That is natural. But when the body is tired, the mind often begins telling a much bigger story. The body says, "I need rest." The mind says, "My whole life is going nowhere." The body says, I cannot do any more today. The mind says, I will never be able to do this. You see the difference. One is a condition in the present moment. The other is a judgment about the entire future. This is why we should be careful when we are exhausted. A tired mind is not always a reliable storyteller. It takes one difficult hour and stretches it across the whole life. It takes one mistake and turns it into an identity. It takes one person's silence and turns it into rejection. Someone does not reply to our message for 2 hours. The mind does not simply say, maybe they are busy. No, the mind begins writing a long story. They are angry with me. They do not respect me. They must be talking about me. Meanwhile, that person may simply be asleep. But before they wake up, we have already suffered through an entire relationship crisis by ourselves. This is what happens when conditions gather. Maybe we did not sleep well. Maybe work was difficult. Maybe there is a bill we do not know how to pay. Maybe one painful sentence from the morning is still sitting inside the mind. Then the body becomes tired. The mind becomes less spacious. A small event enters, and there is no room around it, so it feels much larger than it really is. This is why Buddhist practice teaches us to look at causes and conditions before believing every thought. A thought may be present, but that does not mean it is true. An emotion may be strong, but strength is not the same as wisdom. Anger can sound very certain. Fear can speak very loudly. Sadness can make a temporary problem look permanent. So when the mind says, everything is hopeless, ask gently, what conditions are present right now? Did I sleep? Did I eat? Have I been carrying tension since morning? Am I reacting only to this moment, or to many other moments that came before it? There was a mother who returned home after a difficult day. Traffic had been heavy. Her manager had criticized her. She had skipped lunch, and on the way home, the car began making a strange sound. By the time she entered the house, the mind was already full. Then her son reached for a glass of water and spilled it across the table. She shouted, not because of the water alone. The water was simply the final condition. The suffering had been gathering since morning. But the child did not know that. He only saw his mother becoming angry over a glass of water. A few minutes later she looked at his face and understood something. The child had met the anger, but he had not created all of it. This happens in many homes. One person brings back the conditions of the workplace. Another brings back the conditions of school. Someone else carries worry about money. Then everyone sits at the same table. One small sentence is spoken, and all the conditions meet. Suddenly, dinner becomes a lesson in patience. Some people are doing very well. Others are still practicing. So what can we do? First, recognize the state of the body before entering the house. Perhaps sit quietly for 1 minute, not 1 hour, just 1 minute. Let the shoulders drop. Notice the breathing. Say honestly, I am carrying a lot right now. That awareness may not remove the problem, but it can stop us from handing the entire burden to the first person who speaks. Second, do not make important decisions when the mind is flooded. Perhaps the decision is necessary, but perhaps it is not necessary tonight. Rest first. Eat something. Let the body settle. Then look again in the morning. Many problems feel smaller after sleep, not because the situation disappeared, but because the mind has a little more space. Third, speak about your condition without turning another person into the enemy. You can say, I had a difficult day. I need a little quiet. That is different from saying, everybody here is making my life harder. One sentence describes your condition. The other spreads the suffering. Mindfulness helps us know the difference. Being tired does not make you a bad person, but ignoring your tiredness can lead you to create pain. You may say something you do not mean. You may punish somebody who did not harm you. You may make a permanent decision from a temporary state. So do not be ashamed of needing rest, and do not be proud of never stopping. Some people say, I only slept 3 hours. They say it as though they have received an award. But the people around them may be thinking, yes, we noticed. Rest is not laziness when rest prevents harm. A calmer body supports a clearer mind. And a clearer mind creates different words, different actions, and different conditions in the home. This is how practice enters ordinary life. Not only when we sit in meditation, Not only when incense is burning, practice also appears when the mind becomes sharp, and we choose not to hand that sharpness to someone else. So on a very tired day, do not ask, "What is wrong with my entire life?" Ask, "What does this moment need?" Maybe it needs sleep, maybe it needs silence, maybe it needs an honest conversation, maybe one decision needs to wait until tomorrow. A tired day is still only a day. A painful hour is still only an hour. Let the conditions settle, then look again. Life may still be difficult, but difficult is not the same as hopeless, and tiredness is not the truth about your entire life. Now, when people feel tired and uncertain, the mind often turns toward money. The rent is coming, the car needs repair, someone in the family needs something, and before long. The mind is counting problems faster than it can count what is still okay. Wanting financial stability is natural. Money can buy food, it can provide medicine, it can keep a family warm. It can help someone through a difficult season. The Buddha did not teach that money itself is bad. The difficulty begins when we ask money to do something it cannot do. We ask it to remove every fear. We quietly tell ourselves, "If I have enough, then nothing can go wrong." But how much is enough? The mind rarely gives a final number. When we reach one amount, it moves the line. Just a little more, then a little more becomes the new beginning. Money is useful, but it is not a safe place for the heart to hide. There was a woman who owned a beautiful set of dishes. She had saved for them for a long time. When she finally bought them, she placed them carefully inside a cabinet. Her family was not allowed to use them. "These are for a special day," she said. Birthdays came, visitors came, holidays came, but somehow none of those days were special enough. The family continued eating from the old plates with small cracks around the edges. Years later, the woman moved to another home. While carrying the box, someone dropped it. Several of the beautiful dishes broke before they had ever held a meal. You see, sometimes we become so afraid of losing something that we never really receive it. We save the good dishes, we save the good clothes, we save our time. Sometimes we even save our kindness. We think there will be a better day to use them. Then the conditions change. This does not mean we should spend carelessly. Wisdom is not wastefulness. There is a difference between saving with understanding and holding with fear. Money should serve life. Life should not become a servant of money. A person may have little and still use what they have with gratitude. Another person may have much more and still wake up feeling poor. The difference is not only the number, it is also the mind holding the number. When fear controls the mind, even abundance feels unsafe. And when the mind understands enough, even a simple meal can feel rich. Money can also become a condition for compassion. It can provide food. It can help someone study. It can allow an exhausted person to rest for one day. But generosity is not only about what leaves the hand. It is also about what loosens inside the heart. The fear becomes a little softer. The word mine becomes a little less tight. That is why giving is part of the practice. We are not only helping another person. We are training the mind not to become imprisoned by what it owns. Of course, generosity also needs wisdom. We should not ignore our responsibilities and call it spirituality. The middle way is to earn honestly, spend carefully, save responsibly, and share when the conditions allow. Money comes, money goes. An unexpected expense appears. A good opportunity disappears. That is its nature. So use money wisely while it is here, but do not ask it to promise that nothing painful will ever happen. It cannot make that promise. In the end, the question is not only, how much did I keep? The deeper question is, what kind of mind did I create while holding it? Now, money is not the only thing we hold tightly. We also hold habits. And habits are often harder to recognize because after a while, they begin to feel like part of our personality. We say that is just how I am. But many things we call personality are reactions we have practiced for years. The Buddha taught that karma is created through intention, speech, and action. When people hear the word karma, they often imagine one enormous event, a terrible betrayal, a violent action, a serious lie, but karma usually begins much more quietly. One thought is entertained, one sentence is spoken, one reaction is excused. Then the same thing happens again. The first time creates a condition. Repetition strengthens it. After enough repetition, the reaction becomes so familiar that it seems automatic. Imagine someone receives a message that makes them angry. They begin typing immediately. The words are sharp. Their finger is already above the send button. For one moment, they know the message will create more suffering. But another thought appears. They deserve to hear this, so the message is sent. The argument grows. More messages follow. By the end of the evening, both people are exhausted, but something else has also happened. The mind has practiced obeying anger quickly. The next time anger appears, the path will be easier to follow. This is how karma becomes habit energy. It is not only a result waiting somewhere in the future, it is also the mind being shaped in the present. Every repeated action teaches the mind what to do next. If we complain every day, the mind becomes very skilled at finding what is wrong. If we repeatedly gossip, the mind begins collecting the mistakes of other people. If we always postpone an apology, pride becomes easier and humility becomes harder. But the same principle works in the other direction. If we repeatedly pause before speaking, the pause becomes more natural. If we practice generosity, the fear of losing begins to loosen. If we choose honesty when lying would be easier, honesty becomes part of our path. So karma is not only a warning, it is also hope. What has been practiced can begin to be practiced differently. There was a man who always left the shopping cart in the middle of the parking lot. He would say, "Someone is paid to collect it." It seemed like a very small thing, and yes, it was small. But look at the direction of the mind. My convenience matters more than the person who comes after me. The same attitude can appear elsewhere. We leave a mess because someone else will clean it. We speak carelessly because someone else will repair the relationship. We waste something because the amount seems too small to matter. The action may be small, but each action is training the mind in a direction. This is why practice must enter ordinary places. The kitchen is part of the path. The parking lot is part of the path. The family group chat is definitely part of the path. A person may meditate peacefully every morning, then drive as though every other vehicle is a personal enemy. The meditation is not useless, but the practice has not yet reached the road. It is easy to feel peaceful when nobody is disturbing us. Even a sleeping cat looks enlightened. The real test appears when the conditions are inconvenient, when we are tired, when somebody speaks badly, when we do not receive what we expected. That is when old habit energy comes forward, and sometimes it comes very quickly. Before wisdom has put on its shoes, anger is already outside, so we practice in small moments. When irritation appears, we do not have to feed it immediately. When a cruel sentence reaches the mouth, we can wait. When the mind wants to repeat somebody else's mistake, we can ask, "Will saying this reduce suffering?" If the answer is no, silence may be the wiser action. One pause may seem small, but repeated pauses become patience. One sincere apology may seem small, but repeated honesty becomes character. One harmful reaction not repeated may quietly change an entire relationship. That is often how a life changes, not through one dramatic spiritual experience, but because we stop feeding one old reaction, then another, then another. The old habit receives less nourishment. A new response receives more, and little by little, another path becomes easier to walk. So do not wait for a great moment to begin changing karma. Look at what you are practicing today, the tone of your voice, the thoughts you keep returning to, the way you behave when nobody praises you. The small choices may seem ordinary, but they are quietly teaching the mind who to become. Now, after the body, money, and habits, we come to something even closer to the heart, the people we love. Parents, children, partners, brothers and sisters, friends who have walked beside us for many years. We naturally want these relationships to remain. We want the people we love to be healthy. We want them to understand us. We want them to stay near. And when a relationship begins to change, the mind becomes afraid. Sometimes that fear appears as control. Why did you not call me? Why did you make that decision without asking me? Why are you different now? Underneath those questions, the heart may really be saying, please do not change in a way that takes you away from me. But people are also made of conditions. Their bodies change. Their responsibilities change. Their understanding changes. Their feelings may change. Even when love remains, the form of the relationship may not remain the same. A child grows up. A parent grows older. A close friend moves away. Someone who once had time every evening may now have a family, a difficult job, or burdens we do not fully see. Then the mind says, they do not care the way they used to. Maybe that is true. But perhaps the conditions have changed. This does not mean we excuse every neglectful action. It means we look carefully before turning every change into betrayal. There was a man who loved his father deeply. He lived in another city and was always busy. Whenever his father called, the son usually said, I will call you properly this weekend. The weekend came, there was work to finish. The children needed attention. Something in the house needed repair, so he sent a short message. Next weekend, Dad, his father, understood. Parents often say they understand, even when they are still waiting. The son was not cruel. He truly believed there would be more time. Then one evening the phone rang, but this time it was not his father calling. After that night, the son kept reading the old messages. Have you eaten? Is the weather cold there? Call when you are free. He had always planned to become free later. But later did not arrive in the form he expected. You see, impermanence does not make love meaningless. It means love should not always be postponed. Sometimes we save affection the way we save the good dishes. We wait for a calmer day, a better day, a day when we are less busy. Then the person changes, the relationship changes, or life closes the door before we have said what was in the heart. This does not mean we should live in fear. We do not need to call everybody every hour and ask, are you still there? After the third call, they may begin avoiding us for another reason. The teaching is much simpler. When love is present, let it become visible. Say thank you. Listen without looking at the phone. Let a parent tell the same old story again. Perhaps you already know the ending, but one day you may miss the voice telling it. And when there is conflict, remember that time is also passing inside the conflict. Two people can lose years waiting for the other person to speak first. Both are hurt. Both miss each other. But pride stands at the door and says, nobody enters until the other person apologizes. Then months pass, sometimes years. The original argument becomes difficult to remember, but the habit of distance remains. So ask yourself, what am I protecting? Am I protecting wisdom? Am I protecting a necessary boundary? Or am I protecting pride? There are relationships where distance is needed. Compassion does not require us to remain close to abuse. Forgiveness does not mean giving another person unlimited access to harm us. But even when a boundary is necessary, we do not have to carry hatred everywhere we go. We can protect the body and still release poison from the mind. The people we love cannot live our lives for us. They cannot become sick in our place. They cannot grow old in our place. And when death comes, even the deepest love cannot prevent each person from meeting their own karma and conditions. This truth may sound sad, but it can also make us more awake. Because if nobody can remain forever, then the way we treat one another today matters. The last conversation may not announce itself. The last ordinary meal may look like every other meal. The last time someone leaves the house, nobody may know it is the last. So do not become frightened. Become present. Do not wait until the funeral to remember somebody's goodness. Do not wait until the room is empty to speak gently. Do not wait until a person can no longer hear you to say, I understand, I am sorry, I forgive you, I love you, love deeply. But do not hold so tightly that love becomes fear. Care for people, but remember that they are not possessions. Walk beside them while the conditions allow, and when change comes, let the love become gratitude rather than only regret. The people we love cannot stay forever. That is exactly why, while they are here, we should truly be here too. Now, remembering that people cannot stay forever brings us to a difficult question. What do we do with the people who have hurt us? It is easy to say, life is short. Just forgive. But when the wound is real, that sentence can sound too simple. Some words remain in the mind for years. Some betrayals change the way we trust. Some relationships leave us carrying anger long after the event has ended. So forgiveness does not mean pretending that nothing happened. It does not mean harmful behavior was acceptable. And it does not always mean returning to the same relationship in the same way. Forgiveness means we stop allowing one old event to keep creating new suffering inside us. There were two sisters who stopped speaking after an argument during a family meal. The argument lasted less than 1 minute. One sister said something sharp. The other answered with something sharper. Then both became silent. At first each one thought, "She will call me tomorrow." Tomorrow passed, then a week, then a month. Each sister missed the other, but neither wanted to call first, because calling first felt like losing. You see, the argument lasted 1 minute, but the mind turned it into a 3-year television series. Every episode had the same story. She started it. No, she started it. Both were suffering, both were waiting, and pride was sitting between them, very comfortable, paying no rent. This is how resentment continues. The original event may have ended long ago, but we keep replaying it. We remember the tone, we remember the words, sometimes we even remember where the person was sitting. The mind may forget where it placed the keys this morning, but it remembers one painful sentence from 11 years ago with perfect clarity. Why? Because we kept feeding it. We repeated the story inside the mind. Then we repeated it to other people. Each time the anger received a little more nourishment. After a while we no longer say, "I am carrying anger." We say, "That is simply who that person is." Or even, "This is who I have become because of them." But Buddhist practice asks us to look more carefully. What happens each time the memory returns? Does the body tighten? Does the argument begin again? The other person may not even be present. They may be sleeping peacefully somewhere. But inside our mind, the trial is still continuing. We are the lawyer, we are the witness, we are the judge, and somehow we are also the one serving the sentence. So forgiveness is not only a gift for the person who hurt us, it is also a way of releasing ourselves from the endless repetition of the wound. But forgiveness cannot be forced. We cannot order the heart, "Forgive immediately." Sometimes the first step is simply admitting, "Yes, I was hurt, not I should not feel this, not." A good Buddhist would never become angry. A good practitioner is not someone who never feels anger. A good practitioner learns to see anger clearly and stops giving it more causes whenever possible. Maybe today, forgiveness only means that we stop rehearsing revenge. Maybe it means we no longer check the other person's life, hoping something bad has happened. Maybe it means that when their name is mentioned, we take one breath before speaking. That is already a different condition. Then, little by little, the grip may loosen, and sometimes, while the other person is still here, a conversation becomes possible. Not a conversation to prove who was right. A conversation to understand what happened. You may say, "What you did caused me pain." You may also say, "I do not want this pain to keep shaping my life." The other person may apologize. They may not. They may understand. They may still defend themselves. Forgiveness does not require us to control their response. It asks us to decide what kind of mind we will continue carrying. And when we are the one who caused harm, the practice is different. Then we need to apologize. A real apology does not say, "I am sorry you felt hurt." That sentence quietly returns the whole problem to the person who was hurt. A sincere apology says, "I spoke carelessly, I acted from anger. I understand that this caused suffering, and I will try not to repeat it." The apology is not complete when the words are spoken. It becomes real when the behavior begins to change. Otherwise, we are only renewing the subscription. Same suffering, new month. Forgiveness also needs wisdom. There are people we can forgive and still keep at a distance. There are situations where contact is unsafe. There are relationships where returning would create more harm. Compassion does not mean removing every boundary. A boundary says, "You cannot continue treating me this way." Hatred says, "I will carry you inside my mind everywhere I go." One protects life. The other keeps the wound alive, so release what you can. Protect what must be protected, but remember that time is moving. Sometimes we wait too long to speak. We assume there will be another holiday, another family gathering, another chance to explain. Then the conditions change. A person becomes sick. A phone call arrives, and the conversation we postponed can no longer happen in the same way, so while there is still someone to hear it, say what truly needs to be said. I was wrong. I understand more now. I do not want us to continue like this. I forgive you. Please forgive me. These words may not repair everything, but they can stop new suffering from being added to old suffering. The past cannot be changed, but the way we carry the past can change. And when that changes, karma begins to change too. Because forgiveness is not forgetting what happened. It is refusing to let yesterday keep choosing today. Now, forgiveness becomes difficult for another reason. The mind keeps returning to what hurt us. In Buddhist practice, attention is not a small thing. What we repeatedly notice, we repeatedly nourish. Imagine that 10 people speak kindly to you during the day. One person speaks in a cold tone. That night, which voice follows you to bed? Usually, not the 10 kind voices. The mind carries the difficult sentence home. It gives the sentence dinner. It prepares a bed for it. Then at 2 in the morning, the sentence is still awake. And apparently, so are we. This does not mean we pretend that harmful things are harmless. Wisdom sees clearly. If someone behaves badly, we should recognize it. But seeing something once is different from replaying it 50 times. Every time we repeat the insult, the body reacts again. The shoulders tighten. The breathing changes. The argument begins again inside the mind, even though the other person is no longer in the room. So we should ask, what am I watering? If we spend every day noticing only what is wrong with people, the mind becomes very skilled at collecting faults at home. Somebody is too noisy. At work, somebody is too slow. At the temple, somebody is sitting in the wrong place. We came to practice peace, but somehow became the inspector of everybody else as practice. The problem is not that faults do not exist. The problem is that while watching everyone else, we may forget to watch the mind that is watching. Mindfulness gives us another choice. We can notice anger without feeding it. We can recognize a painful memory without allowing it to occupy the entire day. We can also deliberately notice what is wholesome, a person who remained patient, someone who made an honest effort, a small kindness that nobody announced, a moment when we almost became angry, but did not. At first, this may feel unnatural. The mind may say, why should I notice these little things? Because little things also become conditions. If we repeatedly notice goodness, gratitude becomes easier. If we repeatedly notice restraint, patience becomes stronger. If we repeatedly return to the breath before reacting, the mind learns that it does not have to obey every feeling immediately. Attention is like water. Whatever receives it regularly begins to grow. This is also why we must be careful with what we consume every day. If the mind constantly receives anger, comparison, fear, and conflict, those seeds do not simply disappear, they remain. Then one difficult condition appears, and what has been stored begins to rise. So guard the eyes, guard the ears, guard the mind. Not by hiding from life, but by knowing what we are allowing to remain inside us. Do not ask, only what happened to me today. Also ask, what did I continue feeding after it happened? The event may have lasted 1 minute, but attention can extend that minute into an entire day. And when we learn to place attention more wisely, we begin changing the condition of the mind itself. Now, when the mind becomes skilled at collecting faults, something else can happen. We may begin using another person's weakness as a reason to abandon what is good for ourselves. Someone begins attending a meditation group. At first, the practice helps. They become calmer. They listen more carefully at home. They begin recognizing anger before it reaches the mouth. Then one day, another person in the group behaves badly. Maybe that person gossips. Maybe they are proud. Maybe they speak beautifully about compassion, but treat people without much kindness. Immediately, the mind says, if people who practice Buddhism behave like this, then I do not want to practice anymore. But look carefully. That person's behavior may be wrong. Why should their mistake decide the direction of your life? If someone drives carelessly on a road, does that mean the road itself is wrong? No. It means that person is not driving carefully. The same is true of the path. A person may hear the teaching and still struggle to live it. Someone may meditate every day and still become angry. Someone may bow very beautifully, then become upset because another person stood in the place they wanted. Human beings are still human beings. The temple door does not automatically remove greed, anger, and pride. If it did, the practice would be very easy. We would simply walk inside and come out enlightened near the parking lot. But practice takes time, sometimes a very long time. This does not mean we excuse harmful behavior. If something is wrong, see it clearly. If somebody is causing harm, speak wisely. Create a boundary when necessary. Leave an unsafe place if you must, but do not take another person's unwholesome behavior and turn it into your reason to stop creating wholesome conditions. Their anger belongs to their practice. Your response belongs to yours. We often give people more power than we realize. One person behaves badly, and we stop going to the temple. One teacher disappoints us, and we reject every teaching. One friend lies, and we decide that nobody can be trusted. Then one person's action begins directing the whole mind. Now their mistake is creating our next decision. Why give them that much authority? The Buddhist teaching should not be judged only by whether every Buddhist has already perfected it. Medicine is not useless because one patient refuses to take it correctly. A map is not wrong because one traveler chooses another road. The real question is whether the teaching helps reduce greed, anger, and delusion when it is sincerely practiced. And when another person disappoints us, there may still be something to learn. Perhaps we learn discernment. Perhaps we learn not to confuse appearance with character. Perhaps we learn that respect does not require blindness. Perhaps we learn how easily the mind becomes self-righteous while criticizing someone else's pride. That is a subtle danger. We notice their fault, then feel superior because we noticed it. Now their pride has created pride in us. The mind is very efficient. It can turn almost anything into more ego. So when you see another person behaving poorly, ask, what is the wise response here? Maybe the wise response is patience. Maybe it is honest speech. Maybe it is distance. But do not let their mistake pull you away from what is still helping you become kinder, clearer, and less harmful. Nobody enters the path because they have no faults. We enter because there are faults to understand, habits to transform, and suffering that we no longer want to keep passing to other people. Their path is their responsibility. Your path is yours. Do not let another person's fault become the road you follow. Now we come to the most important place in the whole teaching, the mind. The body changes. Money comes and goes. People enter our lives. Then one day the conditions change. Even the situations we try so hard to control cannot remain exactly as we want, but the mind can be trained in the middle of all those changes. This does not mean we can control every thought. A thought may arise before we invite it. Anger may appear, fear may appear, an old memory may suddenly return. The first movement of the mind is sometimes very fast, but what happens next? That is where practice begins. Imagine a storm reaches a house. We cannot stand outside and order the wind to stop. We cannot argue with the rain, but we can close the windows. We can move away from the broken glass. We can protect the flame inside the house. The storm is one condition. How we care for the house is another. The mind is similar. We cannot prevent every unpleasant word from reaching us. We cannot guarantee that nobody will disappoint us. We cannot arrange life so perfectly that anger never receives a reason to appear. If we wait for the world to become convenient before practicing peace, we may have to wait a very long time. The practice is not to remove every storm. It is to stop opening every window when the storm arrives. Someone speaks harshly, immediately. Anger appears. That is the first movement. Then the mind says, say something back. Make them feel what you feel. Do not let them win. Now there is a second moment. That second moment may be very short, but it is enough for one breath. One breath does not make the anger disappear. It creates a little space around it. In that space we can see anger is present. That is different from I am anger. When we say I am angry, the feeling and the self seem to become one thing. But when we say anger is present in the mind, we remember that anger is a condition. It arose. It is being supported by causes, and if it is not continuously fed, it can change. This is the beginning of freedom, not because the feeling vanished, but because we no longer have to become its servant. The Buddha's teaching is very practical here. Guard the mind not by making the mind empty, not by pretending that difficult feelings do not exist. We guard the mind by knowing what has entered and deciding what we will continue entertaining. A visitor may come to the door, but we do not have to prepare a room for every visitor. Anger knocks. We notice it, but we do not need to cook dinner for it. Give it our phone and let it call everybody we know. Fear appears. We listen carefully. Maybe there is something wise we need to do, but we do not allow fear to become the permanent manager of the house. This is mental training, and like physical training, it becomes stronger through repetition. One mindful breath may not seem powerful, but one breath repeated every time anger arises begins to create a new habit. One moment of restraint becomes two. One honest observation becomes a clearer understanding. At first, the old reaction may still be strong. Someone criticizes us, and the mind prepares a full speech immediately. Very organized, excellent memory, all evidence ready. The mind may forget 3 things at the supermarket, but during an argument it remembers every mistake the other person made since 2014. That is habit energy. It has been training for years. So we should not become discouraged when one meditation does not remove it. We spent a long time practicing irritation. A little patience is needed while we practice something else. Training the mind also means seeing the conditions before they become actions. Perhaps anger becomes stronger when the body is tired. Perhaps jealousy appears after too much comparison. Perhaps resentment grows every time we repeat the same story to ourselves. Perhaps craving becomes stronger when the mind feels lonely. When we see the conditions, we do not have to hate ourselves. We begin adjusting what can be adjusted. We rest. We reduce what keeps disturbing the mind. We stop returning to the conversation that is already over. We seek wise companionship. We listen to teachings that remind us of the direction we want to follow. This is why practice is not only about stopping bad actions at the final moment. It is also about creating conditions in which wisdom has a better chance to arise. A calm mind does not appear by accident. It is supported. A compassionate response does not appear from nowhere. It has been practiced. A person who remains gentle in a difficult moment may look naturally peaceful, but perhaps they have been returning to the breath for years. Perhaps they have apologized many times. Perhaps they have watched anger rise and fall so often that they no longer believe every command it gives. That is the fruit of training. We cannot keep the body young forever. We cannot keep every possession. We cannot keep every person beside us. But we can train the way the mind meets loss. We can train the way it meets praise. We can train the way it meets insult, uncertainty, sickness, and change. Then life may still contain pain, but pain does not automatically have to become more suffering. The world may not obey us, but the mind can slowly stop obeying every unwholesome impulse, and when the mind stops following the old road, karma also begins moving in a different direction. Now, when the mind begins to train differently, karma also begins to change. Many people hear the word karma and become afraid. They think karma is a fixed punishment waiting somewhere in the future. I made a mistake, so my life is finished. I created bad karma, so nothing can be changed. But if karma could never change, practice would have no meaning. Why would the Buddha teach awareness, repentance, right speech, compassion, and wisdom? If human beings were permanently trapped by everything they had already done, the past has created conditions we cannot pretend otherwise. A harsh word may have damaged trust. A selfish decision may have hurt another person. Years of anger may have shaped the atmosphere of a family. There are consequences, but the past is not the only condition present today. The way we respond now also becomes a condition. Suppose someone sends you a disrespectful message. The old habit rises immediately. The face becomes hot. The fingers begin typing. The mind says, "Answer now." Do not let them think you are weak. You write 3 paragraphs, very powerful paragraphs. Every sentence is ready to win the argument and lose the relationship. But this time, before pressing send, you stop. You place the phone on the table. You walk to the sink. You wash your face. The anger is still there. Nothing magical has happened. You have not suddenly become a perfectly peaceful person, but you did not feed the old karma in the usual way that matters. Maybe 10 minutes later, you read the message again. You still disagree. You may still need to respond, but now the response is different. You remove the sentence written only to wound. You remove the insult. You say clearly what needs to be said. Without creating unnecessary suffering, the other person may still react badly. Practice does not guarantee that everyone will appreciate our wisdom. Sometimes we speak calmly, and the other person becomes even angrier because they were prepared for a fight. But their response is their karma. The intention and action we create are ours. This is an important distinction. Changing karma does not mean controlling the outcome. It means changing what we contribute to the conditions. Perhaps an argument still happens, but we do not add cruelty. Perhaps a relationship still ends, but we do not end it with revenge. Perhaps somebody misunderstands us, but we do not need to become dishonest in order to force them to understand. That is already a new direction. One restrained message may look small, but the mind has learned something. I can feel anger without immediately obeying it. The next time, the pause may become easier. Then one day, the reaction that once controlled us may no longer feel like the only possible response. This is how karma changes, not because the past disappears, but because the present stops repeating it in exactly the same way. Sometimes people say, "My father was angry, so I became angry. My family never apologized, so I do not know how to apologize. Everyone around me speaks this way. Those conditions are real." We are influenced by what we repeatedly receive. A child who grows up inside shouting may learn to shout. A person who is constantly criticized may begin criticizing others. Pain is often passed from one person to another without anyone consciously deciding to pass it. But awareness creates a new possibility. We can say, "This suffering came through me, but it does not have to continue through me." That is a very powerful form of practice. Maybe you received impatience. You practice patience. Maybe nobody listened to you when you were young. You learned to listen to your children. Maybe apology was considered weakness in your family. You become the first person willing to say, "I was wrong." At first, it may feel uncomfortable. The mouth does not know how to say the words. The ego becomes nervous. It says, "Be careful, you may lose your position." But what position are we protecting? The position of someone who can never admit a mistake. That position is very lonely. Repentance in Buddhist practice is not sitting forever in shame. Shame says, "I am a terrible person and nothing can change." Repentance says, "This action caused suffering. I see it more clearly now. I do not want to continue in that direction." Then we repair what can be repaired. We apologize. We return what was taken. We correct the lie. We change the habit. And where the past cannot be repaired directly, we live differently now. That is how sincere regret becomes wholesome karma. Not through punishment, but through transformation. Of course, one good action does not erase every consequence immediately. If trust has been broken many times, one apology may not restore it. If the body has been neglected for years, one healthy meal may not heal everything. If anger has filled a home for a long time, one peaceful evening may not make everyone feel safe. But do not underestimate that peaceful evening. It is a new condition. Then another peaceful evening comes. Then another honest conversation. Then one promise is kept. Trust may return slowly, sometimes very slowly, but karma also grew slowly. Why should we expect transformation to happen in one afternoon? We water a seed. We do not dig it up 5 minutes later and ask, "Why have you not become a tree?" Practice requires continuity. We speak differently today. Then tomorrow we practice again. We notice the old habit returning. We do not become discouraged. We begin again. This is why changing the mind is not one dramatic decision. It is a direction renewed many times. Sometimes we succeed. Sometimes the old reaction comes out before we can stop it. Then we notice, we take responsibility, we repair, and we continue practicing. Do not turn one failure into permission to abandon the path. The mind may say, I became angry again. Nothing has changed, but perhaps the anger lasted 10 minutes instead of 3 days. Perhaps you apologized that evening instead of waiting 3 years. Perhaps you recognized the suffering while it was happening. That is change. Maybe not the final change, but a real one. The Buddha's path is not asking us to become perfect overnight. It asks us to become more awake to what we are creating. Thought by thought, word by word, action by action. When greed arises, we recognize it. When anger arises, we recognize it. When compassion appears, we support it. When wisdom speaks quietly, we learn not to ignore it. Then the mind begins producing different intentions. Different intentions create different actions. Different actions create different conditions, and different conditions allow another kind of life to unfold. The outside world may still be uncertain. The body will still change. Money will still come and go. People will still misunderstand us. Loss will still visit. But the mind meeting those conditions is no longer exactly the same mind. It has practiced pausing. It has practiced seeing. It has practiced releasing. It has practiced beginning again. And when the mind changes, the karma being created in this moment changes with it. That is how a life begins to change, not by escaping the life we already have, but by no longer feeding it with the same mind. So now come back to that ordinary evening. You return home tired. The body is heavy. The mind has carried too many conditions through the day. Then someone asks, did you remember to buy the milk? Maybe you forgot. Maybe the question still sounds irritating, but now there is a little more space. You can notice the tiredness before turning it into anger. You can take one breath. You can say, I forgot. I had a difficult day. That one breath may not look spiritual. There is no temple bell, no incense, nobody is watching, but in that moment you are changing karma. You are stopping one old habit from becoming another painful evening. This is where the teaching lives, not only in the words we understand, but in the suffering we choose not to continue. The body will change, so care for it while it is here. Let it rest when it is tired. Use its strength to help rather than harm. Money will come and go, so earn it honestly. Use it wisely. Let it serve life without allowing it to become the ruler of the heart. The people we love will also change. Some will remain for many years. Some will leave sooner than we expected. So do not wait forever to listen. Do not save every gentle word for another day. And when there is hurt, forgive what can be forgiven. Apologize while there is still someone to hear it. Protect yourself when a boundary is necessary, but do not carry hatred as proof that you were wronged. Life is already impermanent. We do not need to make it heavier by repeating the same suffering inside the mind. The Buddha did not teach impermanence to make us afraid of losing everything. He taught it so we would stop sleeping beside what is precious. This meal will end. This conversation will end. This difficult season will also end. And because everything changes, the mind can change too. The mind that reacted yesterday does not have to react in exactly the same way today. The anger may still arise. The fear may still appear. The old habit may still knock on the door. But now perhaps you do not invite it to stay for the whole evening. You recognize it. You breathe, you look at the causes, then you choose what to feed. That is practice, not perfection. Practice one mindful pause, one sentence spoken with less anger, one apology given earlier, one painful story we decide not to repeat again tonight. These things may seem small, but a life is made from small moments repeated many times, and karma is also being created there. Thought by thought, word by word, action by action, so treasure the life that is here, not because it will remain, but because it will not. Hold the people you love with gratitude, not ownership. Use what you have without hiding inside it. Care for the body without asking it to defeat time, and train the mind, because the mind will meet every change that comes. There will still be difficult days. There will still be tired evenings. Sometimes you will forget the milk. Sometimes you will forget the teaching too. Then remember again. Begin again. Perhaps your life is not asking you to escape. Perhaps it is asking you to stop feeding the causes of the same suffering and begin quietly with the life that is already here.